What's up, guys? We asked for some questions regarding the fight world, and you sent them, so your boy's going to answer them. The team here at Thick Boy Studios picked out some of their favorite questions, so let's jump right in. The man at Ichacon89, Ichacon 89. What's poppin', daddy? What would be the next super fight you would like to see in the UFC? For example, Volkanovski versus Islam. Good question. I guess it's a super fight. I think it's, when I say this is, the big UFC 287 is Saturday. Pierre and Izzy is happening. So I think this happens regardless whether it's you consider it a super fight or not. But Alex Pierre at light heavyweight against Jamal Hill is a fight that they can take all my money. I think it's only a matter of time. No matter what happens, win, lose, or draw, I think Pierre's future is at light heavyweight. He's too big for 85, especially as he's getting older. And I think his future is at light heavyweight, which I think he will have the same success that he has at middleweight. I think there's better matchups for him at light heavyweight. More strikers, not so many heavy grapplers. Because you look at middleweight, if you were to win on Saturday against Izzy, the rest of that division is not a great matchup for him, and then if he's going to stay at 85 and defend his title, if he was going to win on Saturday and defend his title, he's probably looking at a Hamzat fight next, which is stylistically a complete nightmare for him. So I think that would be considered a super fight, depending how you define super. But Alex Pierre up at light heavyweight against the champion Jamal Hill, to me, would be a pretty cool super fight. So hopefully that answered your question. Ichacon. What else you got? At Michael Friedman 1221. If Masvidal, Jorge Masvidal wins, do you see him ever rematching Colby Covington? I don't think so. Well, my initial response is absolutely not, but they do have that weird beef, right? Where there's the, he's going to press charges against him. That went away. Man, that's a good question. I don't think so. My initial response is absolutely not. You hear Masvidal talks, about how this is probably his last one, especially if you're to lose. Whenever you hear a guy talking about this, my last one, he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I know for a fact Masvidal has a lot going on outside the octagon. So I just don't see him fighting a guy in Colby Covington. Covington has a lot of work to do now, especially that Kamaru Usman is kind of on his last leg. I think Kamaru has maybe one more. So I think for Colby, I don't think you'd entertain that because it wasn't very competitive the first time they fought. So I don't see the UFC doing that either. So I don't think so. What else you got? At Razashani10, that's RAMZISHAHEEN 10. If Michael Chandler beats Conor McGregor, do you think it's done for McGregor, or can he find a way to come back from that? Not done. I think McGregor's one of those guys, he'll never be done. His star is so bright no matter what happens. Look at all this stuff that's happened outside of the octagon. He's still a force to be reckoned with as far as the fans are concerned. He has his loyal fan base, and they're massive. You're looking at one. The guy can do no wrong in my book. Sometimes he makes it tough to cheer for him, but with his history and what he's done for this game, I don't think that fan base is ever going to go away. But if he were to get dominated by Michael Chandler, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for him to get back in there. There are a few guys where if you were to just get mollywopped by Michael Chandler, what he could jump in there with. I could see a Tony Ferguson, a fight like that makes a lot of sense. Two guys who are kind of on the back nine of the career. Something like that, a legendary fight. Not to mention, you didn't can he find his way back from that? In regards to the UFC, it'd be really tough. I do think the Tony Ferguson fight makes a lot of sense no matter what, win, lose, or draw there. But can he bounce back from that? Outside of the UFC, yeah, I think there's a lot of big name boxing that can be available for Conor McGregor outside the UFC. You know, no matter if his nuts are hanging down to his ankles, I think people are going to pay to see him fight a Jake Paul, a KSI. Listen, I get it. You guys are like, what? I know. There's a lane for it. It is what it is. But he can take some of those. You know, the Nate Diaz trilogy fight is always just this kind of mythical creature just looming out there for him whenever him and Nate Diaz decide to get together. I do think that fight happens, but I think it's between their two promotions or under a different banner, not the UFC, and it's probably going to be boxing. At Nevin194, what would do more pay-per-view buys? So here we go. What would do more pay-per-view buys? Leon Edwards versus Masvidal or Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington? Edwards and Masvidal, there's a good story there, right? With the 2 pieces and a soda. So there's that. That ship's kind of sailed, right? Is anybody really talking about that? Not really, but we did. They could build it up there. Edwards Masvidal listen. If Masvidal if looks great against Gilbert Burns, there would definitely be some hype there. Covington's had a long time off, but he's a fan favorite. Again, fan favorite, also fan hated. So, you know, he's a compelling guy. It's 2 different things, right? Because Masvidal's kind of on his, like we've said, you know, he's kind of on his way out. Covington now, I think the work now begins for Covington. Like now that Usman's out of the picture, the one guy, his one Achilles heel, I think Covington beats everybody else. I think he's the best welterweight on the planet, not named Kamaru Usman, especially in his prime. So I think more pay-per-view buys doesn't mean it's, you know, it doesn't mean the hardcores or the purists of the sport are going to make it a bigger pay-per-view. For the purists of the sport, it's Edwards Covington, right? Because Covington, even though he's had a year off, he's definitely a top 3 guy. Masvidal, even if he were to beat Gilbert Burns, can you call him a top 3 guy at this point in his career? You know, he's a little longer in the tooth. More pay-per-view buys. The question would be, so Edwards is Edwards. I think his star is bigger than ever, but I think Edwards fans, you know, especially across the pond there, are going to buy the pay-per-view no matter what. So that's a guarantee. So who's more famous in the grand scheme of things, especially with a common fan? Is it Masvidal or Covington? Masvidal's more beloved. Covington's more hated. So I think more people know Covington. It's pretty even. It's pretty even. Even though Masvidal has a little bit of a salty record and Covington's only really lost to Kamaru Usman, I would say they're pretty even. I think you're around 25,000 pay-per-view buys, no matter who it is. So it's not, you know, a huge, drastic difference. 25,000. I don't think it's 250,000 difference. I'd say 25,000. Like it's that close. Yeah, it's that close. Yeah, it's super close. Super close. Super close. As far as the division to move on, you'd want Edwards Covington, though. What else you got? If Izzy loses, is he basically the same as Robert Whittaker? And that's at JR Young 22. Is he basically the same as Robert Whittaker? Yeah, because Izzy's Robert Whittaker's Achilles heel, and Alex Pierre is Izzy's Achilles heel. So they're the best guys. It just depends on the matchups, the style of the matchups. You know, if there's no Izzy, Robert Whittaker's your reigning champ for quite some time. If there's no Pierre, you know, then Izzy's just dominating. So it's just all about stylistic matchups. Now, is he basically the same as Robert Whittaker? I don't know necessarily if that's a bad thing. You know, yeah, you're not champ, but you're pretty damn good. You beat everybody else not named Izzy Adesanya, so that's not a bad place to be in. If Izzy was basically the same as Robert Whittaker, you know, Robert Whittaker's such a talented dude because, you know, I think Robert Whittaker would give Alex Pierre a pretty fair shake as well. He's a different animal. You know, I guess the question, I think what's going to be interesting is, you know, let's say it's going to be better for the UFC if Izzy wins. Because if Izzy wins, there's a lot more options for him a little bit, even though he's cleaned it out. I will say this, no matter if Izzy wins or Alex Pierre wins, neither one of them are going to hold that belt for very long because Hamzat's coming. And again, it's all about matchups. It's not that this guy's bad or this guy's not very good or I'm throwing shade on anybody. It's all about stylistic matchups. And stylistically, Izzy Adesanya and Alex Pierre are awful to match up with against Khamzat. He just, across the board, there couldn't be a worse matchup for both those gentlemen. What's interesting is Khamzat has a tougher fight against Robert Whittaker. So it's all about at that high level who has this, special set of skills to go against the opponent that they're facing. Well, it just so happens that the current guys fighting for the title would be just in a world of trouble against Khamzat. Robert Whittaker, I think if it went to a DraftKings kind of odds thing, Robert Whittaker would be less of an underdog in that fight. So it's all about stylistic matchups. So again, I think it's better for the UFC if Izzy wins, and that forces Alex Pierre to jump to light heavyweight. There's better matchups for him at light heavyweight. Light heavyweight could use a boogeyman Alex Pierre up there. The middleweight could use some kind of order because we know it's just a matter of time for Alex Pierre jumps up there, and it's time for Khamzat to kind of reign over the middleweight divisions because Izzy's been that. But this is his 10th title fight. So Izzy's been the face of the UFC and the middleweight division for how long? So sometimes it's good to switch things up, and I think it's just a matter of time. Again, to be very clear, I think Khamzat beats Whittaker, Izzy, and Alex Pierre. So I think everyone's just keeping that seat warm till Khamzat decides to jump up to middleweight. What else you got? At Weirs 8, Weyers 8. My fight to watch is Pfeiffer Mershart. So if Pfeiffer gets submitted quickly by GM3, GM3, I like that. Does it hurt his stock? What would be next if Pfeiffer gets another knockout win? Yeah, Pfeiffer's a bad man with jam in the middleweight division. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he was a two-time participant on Dana White's Contender Series. First time he actually had an elbow injury, got hurt. That was a number of years ago. And then finally, he got better skill set, more mature, more experience, came back on Dana White Contender Series and blew the roof off the place in a second-round TKO. So now the guy's doing the damn thing. He's a legit middleweight contender in the UFC. And he's another kid. He's from Pennsylvania. He trains with the Savages out there in Philadelphia and Sean Brady and stuff like that. So he's around greatness and really good competitors. So the sky's the limit on this kid. If you were to beat Mershart, what happens for him? Mershart's no joke. So it's definitely a big test for the kid, but he's a big prospect, man. I would like probably a ranked guy, right? Because Mershart kind of is, I hate when people say gatekeeper, but he's kind of that threshold where if you beat him, you're probably right there around 15, 14, right? So I would like to see him get the win of Kelvin Gastelum and Curtis. That makes sense. And they're on the same card, same division. It makes a lot of sense. What else you got? At art_0321. Do we see Logan Paul in the UFC, especially after the Prime deal? Absolutely not. I think you're going to see Logan Paul a lot more, right? Because he's pretty ingrained with the WWE and with the new kind of merger. Is that what we're going to say? Call it the merger with the WWE and UFC with Vince McMahon and Dana White at the helm. And Logan Paul's a pretty, he pops up at the WWE pretty frequently, especially the WrestleMania stuff like that. So he's definitely it's gonna be easier for guys to jump across and cross pollinate there, and you see Logan Paul at more UFCs. Now, do I think he's actually gonna fight in the UFC? I don't think so. I'll never say never. That's what Dana says, right? But it's gonna be easier. Because I'm sure the WWE is going to have some say in who's going to cross over and stuff like that. So I would highly doubt it. I don't think Logan Paul wants to do that. He says he does, and it really predicated on the matchup. I think the whole CM Punk thing, we tried this, right, with guys that don't really have that technical background jumping the UFC. It's not a great look for the UFC, so I know Logan did, the boxing, but it's just a different animal in the UFC. It's the best fighters in the world. It's kind of a slap in the face with those guys, but it depends how far this WWE influences the UFC. that worries me. I'll be honest. That definitely worries me. It blurs the lines there. So if this WWE deal didn't happen, I'd be like, absolutely not. But because it did, it makes it a little easier to transition over the UFC, vice versa. So it worries me. I'll be honest with you. It really worries me with the integrity of the UFC and being a professional sport, especially a top 5 in the world, So the lines are getting blurred. So that means if the lines get blurred, you'd probably see a Logan Paul in there at some point. That stuff worries me. I'll be honest. What else you got? At Kamikaze, that's KAMIKOZZY. What do you think about Pettis saying him and Anderson Silva are supposed to fight in the UFC? That's insane. At 85? Or catchweight, I guess? What are Pettis' chances ever getting back in the UFC? Not good, especially now. He went to PFL, and then he started his own organization, and then he's doing boxing now under Masvidal's banner, Gamebred. I don't see it. I don't see why UFC would do it. I don't think there's much of a demand there in regards to the UFC. Pettis is a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. So next time you see Pettis in the UFC, he'll be on stage getting his gold jacket. But as far as competing in the UFC, those days are over. At what would Rob do? Would Khamzat be a tougher fight for Izzy or Pierre? Both of them. But awful matchup. I think both of them are plus 300 in that fight at least. But I would say it's a tougher fight for Alex Pierre because he's never really fought a guy of Khamzat's level at that caliber of grappling. Izzy, we know, has some takedown defense. We've seen him fight, especially against the cage. He has really good takedown defense. Izzy also took down Pierre, right? So I'd say Izzy has more of a upper hand when it comes to Alex Pierre as the grappling goes, but none of it matters when you're fighting Khamzat. He's such at a higher level when it comes to grappling and submission. So both of them would be screwed in that fight, but it'd be a much tougher fight for Khamzat against Izzy than Alex Pierre. And on record, Khamzat did say on Iro Hawani's show that Pierre would be the easiest fight of his career while he was at McDonald's. At Jake_9914. Does Gilbert Burns take Masvidal down at will? No, I think you guys are doubting Masvidal a little too much. Y'all must have forgot. Masvidal's takedown defense is freaking good. I know Gilbert Burns had some success against Khamzat with the takedowns, even though he got right back up. Gilbert Burns is going to try to knock Masvidal out. Gilbert wins that fight. It's going to be via knockout. But Masvidal, he's been in the game way too long. His takedown defense is very good, especially against the cage. I think he's still athletic and flexible. You see guys get a single leg. It's not easy. He just trains with savages who, guys like Bo Nickel and the other monsters at ATT, who have tried to take him down for years. So it's, don't do that to Masvidal. Let's not discredit the guy and go, is he just going to get taken down and choked out? Nah, man. You ever seen that guy fucking fight in the last 15 years? It's not that easy. So I think the pressure's on Gilbert Burns here. He's such a big favorite, and Masvidal, I think, added more pressure going, this might be my last one if I lose. So it's like, oh, this guy's checked out. Gilbert's going to starch this guy. Whenever you have that kind of pressure on you, it's a lot. It's a lot. So it's going to be a good fight, man. Masvidal's no punk, dude. It's Masvidal. So I do think Masvidal has a good showing, but Gilbert gets it done. At Steph Cameron 96. Steph Cameron 96. Is there a world where Izzy beats Pierre within the first 2 rounds? Yeah. You look at their last fight. Listen, there's a reason why Izzy's the favorite in Vegas right now, and it's not because he's just more popular. Those guys are experts when it comes to setting the lines. Izzy had a ton of success against Alex Pierre in that first fight, a ton of success. If there was 30 seconds left in that first round, he finishes him off. So to think that Izzy could do it, within the first 2 rounds is not a stretch there. I think Izzy gets it done in the first 3 rounds. I think if Izzy wins, I think decision, if you're going to bet on it, decision is probably the safest bet. But if there's a knockout, I can see Izzy getting it done the first 3 rounds, man. So the first 2 rounds isn't a far stretch. You know, you go back to that first fight, Izzy had a lot of success. He's had a lot of time to study that tape. He's one of the greatest coaches in the world studying Alex Pierre. So I think Izzy could get it done via finish in the first 2 rounds. Yeah, that's not a far stretch. At Big Dave 611 from Greenville, Tennessee. If Israel wins, do you think they will run it back? If he loses, will he put down his gloves? I think if Izzy wins, they absolutely don't run it back. This is the last time we're going to see these guys fight. This is the 4th fight, second in the UFC. Even though it'd be a 3-1 record there, I don't think anybody's vying for this thing. You know, unless it's like a super controversial judges scorecard for Izzy, and you think Alex Pierre won. Maybe the UFC's like, all right, we can't send up Alex Pierre to the light heavyweight after this bullshit. So I do think this is the last time we see him fight. I think the light heavyweight is the future for Alex Pierre. For Izzy, if he loses, doesn't put down his gloves. No, because Alex Pierre, the middleweight division is just a temporary stop for him. His future's at light heavyweight and fucking even maybe heavyweight. This guy's gigantic. So for Izzy, he knows that Alex Pierre's not no matter what, win, lose, or draw, that Alex Pierre's future's up a weight class. So I think for Izzy, he'll get back to work regardless of what happens. You know, there's some matchups for Izzy at light heavyweight too. I think he's more of a natural middleweight, but there's certain fights, not Jan Blachowicz, but there's certain fights against strikers like Year and other guys like that he could compete with at light heavyweight if he wanted to do that too. But middleweight's where he's going to be at. At T800 Ruben, my boy Ruben, what's up, man? Can you comment on the speculation that the merger between the UFC and WWE is a strategy for the UFC to retain their aging fighters on their payroll by allowing them to use performance-enhancing drugs and potentially having their fights predetermined? How dare you, Ruben? Speculation? You mean you speculated? Love you, dude. So hold on. So he's thinking that the UFC and WWE merger was so the UFC can retain their older fighters and keep them on the payroll, but allow them to use performance-enhancing drugs and potentially having their fights predetermined. Boy, talk about the lines getting blurred. That would absolutely ruin the UFC. That'd wreck the UFC and their legacy. And it would just become the WWE, and they would completely lose their fan base. The UFC has to tread lightly on this, by cross-pollinating here, because WWE, it's definitely a tough job. These guys, I have some friends who compete in the WWE. One was a world champion multiple times, and she was telling me like their schedule is absolutely insane, and what they put their bodies through, insane. Their bodies take damage like they're an NHL hockey player. Like they're constantly on the road, jumping onto tables, getting hit in the face, slamming their bodies. Like their bodies get absolutely annihilated. That being said, it's not a sport. It's just you can't have a sport predetermined. So the UFC has to tread lightly here. I don't think the UFC is going to do it. I think they know that would ruin their credibility across the board as being a major sport, especially for the common fan. Common fans like, oh, is Undertaker fighting? Is Undertaker fighting Francis Ngannou this weekend? So we don't want that, right? So if you did this just so your older guys could stay on the payroll and take all the steroids they want and then predetermine their fights, that'd just be stupid at this point. Just why wouldn't you just have those older guys keep their fame and their fan base and jump over to the WWE where we know that's what they're doing? Don't ruin the UFC and do that. So there could be that. I think this is off as far as speculation goes. I think the only reason the UFC and WWE combine is for money. For money, because now the UFC, who's with ESPN, WWE's with Fox, they combine forces, and when both those TV rights deals are up, they can come to whoever, ESPN, Fox, ABC, Disney, whoever, and go, all right, well, if you paid whatever it is, however much millions and millions of dollars just for the UFC, well, now we have WWE, stuff as well. So think as how much programming they can offer to a major network. or they're just going to go off on their own, do subscription base, and make all the fucking money. But I think it's just a money play. I think UFC is going to know how to tread lightly with this, but I do think there's going to be a lot of cross-pollinating stuff like that. Is that it? Good questions, guys. I've answered fan question a hot second. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We're doing these pretty frequently, so keep sending them in. Can't thank you guys enough. You can submit your questions at the Thick Boy Instagram. Whatever question you have, whatever it is, send it there. Your boy will answer it. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe. Love you guys. Enjoy UFC 287. Enjoy it this Saturday. Check out the Fight Companion live, Calabas Fight Companion with me, Cheeto Vera, Brian Callen, and Sam Tripoli. That's live Saturday, 7 p.m. only on Thick Boy YouTube. Till next time, stay thick.